My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned. When we're able to get that gift of closure, that is something that's very satisfying, but also in a way hard to explain, because if you've never done it and you end up wondering, what happened to that person? You would think we would find out all the time, right? But no, it doesn't happen. The majority of the time, we don't get any closure, which really sucks. But when we do get that closure, when we get that gift of closure, it's awesome.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, your leading public safety company in AI. And a big shout out to subscribers. As always, thank you for everything, because I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you. Now, we've got a little change of scenery. Usually you see me just like right up front and center. I wanted to switch it up a little bit and try something a little different. Also, I've got my I Am 911 light here. This was all made by my good friend Mike Aurora. So if you're ever looking for any woodworking, it is all him, and I can throw his information in the blog post when it comes out and everything, or just simply look up, I think it's Aurora Designs on Instagram, and you can find his stuff there. He does a lot of woodworking as well for challenge coins. So if you're looking for something different, check him out and hook him up with some work. Let him know that his good buddy, his brother in 911, Ricardo, sent him. So this episode is going to be a solo episode. Obviously, it's just me here. I mean, usually I end up putting the guest up afterwards, right? But this is going to be a solo episode. And I just want to touch on 3 things. The 3 things are actually, it's part of a video that I posted the other day, and a lot of people threw in comments, and I think sometimes going back to basics is good. So I wanted to address these 3 things, because in the video, it was about 7 or 8 minutes. And I thought, man, no one's going to want to watch that on social media, or Reels, that is Reels, whether it be Instagram, Facebook or TikTok, and because those are usually more short form. Now, I will say that there were a lot of views and everything and comments. So maybe it was a little bit better than I thought that it was going to go. But I thought in this episode, we would go into a little deeper of a conversation with some of those things. So basically the premise of the video was, the top three things that I have had to explain to people, whether it be friends, family, or even callers, about 911 and just certain aspects of it, but also three things that people usually get wrong. So the first one, we will start out with the first one here, and that is, can't you just trace my phone call or find where I'm at? Now you can. That can happen. And especially now, it's a lot easier now. But let me take you back a little bit to when I was in dispatch. Now, when I left dispatch, it was 13 years ago. So 2013, it was July 2013, is when I finished my actual dispatching career. I've been in public safety for over 2 decades now because I've been working on the private side. I do the podcast, Imagine Listening, the I Am 911 movement, and also have worked with 911 solutions companies, doing their marketing, storytelling, all types of things. So I've been in public safety for a long time. But for dispatching specifically, I did it for 13 years, and man, it was something. And it was before a lot of this technology that's there now was coming out. So one of the big things that we dealt with was the fact that we could not always find people. Think about that. You call 911. You see these TV shows, movies, where it looks as though you can be easily found, right? They pinpoint the caller on the map. They send someone out there, or maybe you're just thinking in general. You've got these different apps where they can send you food or groceries or anything like that. They can find you easy peasy, right? Well, it's a little different when it's 911. Again, it's a lot better now. I am merely talking about my time before the new technology and everything came out. So, you're calling, and if you don't know your surroundings, which that number one is something for you who are watching and listening, if you're not in public safety, that is number one. Know your surroundings. Know where you're at. Know the address, or at least some crossroads, cross streets. And what I mean by cross streets is the roads that intersect with each other, or landmarks. If you're in an accident, what do you see around you? Or if you're at a friend's house and you don't know the address, what do you see around you? We start to think outside of the box, and we'll say, is there a piece of mail laying around that has the address? Or if you're able to safely, not exactly with kids all the time, because we want them to remain safe. We don't want them to leave the house or anything, but can you open the door? And if the address, like the numbers at least, are right there, can you look? Because maybe with some of the information that we have on the screen, and again, I'm talking about my time when it was just showing on the screen and everything, we can, kind of find where you're at just by these little things, okay? These little clues, really, that we're going off of. So what about cell phones? Almost everyone has a cell phone now. I mean, I think the stat is 85%, might be higher, of the population has cell phones. Nobody really has a landline anymore. And what I mean by landline is your phone that's hooked to a jack there at your house. Because that was easy. All of that was the easiest. And would have the location, and we would send somebody out there. Because when the phone call comes in, there's a process that it goes through for the phone call to get to us in 911, which I won't go down because there's I would have to put some graphics on there to show you point A to point B on all of things that happen like that. Okay. So we're not going to go that far. We're not going to do that part. But either way, when we think about that, it just happens in a split second. You've got the information that shows up on a screen. name, address, latitude, longitude, like all of this different stuff. But if you're calling on a cell phone, it doesn't show up like that. And it's probably different now, especially because it's 2026. And when I ended in 2013, the information would show up. It wouldn't show anyone's name or anything. It would just show the carrier. And what I mean by the carrier is the cell phone company would pop up there, would show a latitude and longitude. But here's the thing, and this is what I cut out of the original video, is that there were two things with cell phones, and it's still kind of the same now. But there's something called wireless phase 1 and wireless phase 2. And I'll just quickly go through it. I won't go too deep, but basically what it is wireless phase 1. If your cell phone comes in on a WPH1, that is going off the address of the actual cell phone tower. Okay. You could be between 3 to 12 miles, maybe, of the radius of that cell phone tower. And we would have to be searching in that area. Now, wireless phase 2 is triangulation. And what that means is it would triangulate between 3 different towers to pinpoint where you're at. There's still about, and if I remember correctly, I know how some of it works on the back end, but I don't remember the miles specifically. So don't take it as gospel. I'm just telling you from what I remember, and hopefully it's right. Either way, you can Google this. You can find it easily. But I believe even with that, it's up to almost 3 miles of that, that area that they find you, or that they can find you, and try to pinpoint where you're at. Now, if we're looking for an even better location, what would happen, especially if it was a wireless phase 1 and we didn't really have a location for you, is we would figure out who the carrier is, okay? And then we would send a fax. That's right, a fax to that cell phone company. 1, to prove that we are who we are. And also we would have to answer all these questions. We would have to say, what exactly is the reason that we need this location? And sometimes some of those folks, and this is probably just their policy. I don't know for sure. I don't know how it worked on their end. But I remember that there would be some times where those folks would say, can I speak to a sergeant? And I would say, this is Central Dispatch. This is 911, and there are no officers in this building. I'm the supervisor. Do you want me to have someone call you? But also at the same time, do you want to be the reason that we're taking long to try to find this person who is potentially suicidal or something? And they'd go, no, we'll do this and we'll get you the information because nobody wants that on their conscience or anything. So sometimes you'd have to be a little firm, but also this is taking a little bit of time to get all of this done. And then they would call back. Sometimes they would have a better location and sometimes they wouldn't, because if the phone is turned off, they would have to go off of the last ping, the last attempt at the location that they could find, or like the last place that they had signal. So if it was turned off, we couldn't find the person. And there were a lot of times that I can remember. And I think that's what's good about new technology now, especially that came out a few years after I was out of dispatch, with companies like Rapid SOS, who came in and solved the location problem. Really helped 911 dispatchers to find where people were at, and a lot easier than it was for me, that's for sure. Because again, I remember the area that I dispatched in, we had some state game area, actually a lot of state game area. And people would go there and they would sometimes get lost. They were in there, they were hiking, spending family time, all of this. And again, sometimes they would get lost. They would call in and they would say, hey, I'm in the Allegan State game area. I can't remember which spot I came out of or in from. I don't know how to get back to my car. Can you help me find a way out? Or can you send an officer out to help me? And if they didn't know, one of the things that helped was if they knew what road they came in on, because there's different entrances, it was easier to try to figure out where they were at. So we would stay on the phone with them for a while to try to get somebody out there. But here's the thing. If they called in and they only had signal to be able to call 911 only, it was a very slim chance that we would be able to ping where they were at. And that sucked because we would get a hold of a cell phone carrier. They would say, we can't do anything. There's no other location. And then maybe the phone would drop, like their signal would drop or their battery would die or something. There was no way to get a hold of them. We would send people out there just to check the area. And if they couldn't find anyone, they couldn't find anyone. And there would be times that I remember driving home with no music on, just hoping and praying that that person found their way out. And it's horrible to think. But also, at the same time, I think that was one of the things that really hit hard with mental health and wellness, because that is now just in your head. You're just hoping and hoping that they found a way out. So with new technology, like what I was talking about, I think that helps with the mental health and wellness a lot, because now you're able to find someone, and and with all technology I'm talking about, not everything is 100%. There are going to be times where, some signal just might be out and you can't pinpoint. At least you would get in the area of where they're at. So don't get it twisted. There are times where with any technology, it's not 100% because life happens. The universe happens. Technology happens. And things sometimes don't always work. But it is a hell of a lot better than it once was. And man, I get jealous sometimes because I wish I could go back into dispatch to use some of that technology, so I could also have kind of that closure in a way. Because again, I remember some of those folks that we just never knew. You didn't know. So when people ask, can't you just trace me? Can't you just pinpoint? Well, yes. And now it is that much easier. But there's so much that goes into it. And the way it was before to the way it was now, man, like night and day. Like night and day. It is something else. But yeah, companies like Rapid SOS, and then companies like What 3 Words, that is something that you can look up as well. Look up What 3 Words, and I forget exactly the explanation, but basically they mapped out the world, really, in these. I think they're these boxes that are about the size of a parking space, and whichever one you're standing in has 3 different words. So if you go online and you look up the company, I'm pretty sure you're able to test it to wherever you're standing. You can do it on your phone as well. It doesn't call 911, so don't worry about that. But in a pinch, if you needed a location, it pops up and it has 3 different words. And a lot of not all of them, don't get me wrong, not all dispatch centers use this, but some of them do. And it's an even easier way for them to find where you're at. So a lot of different things. Okay. The second one is, why do you ask so many questions? Yes. That one is one that people have asked about many, many, many times. Why do you ask so many questions? Or some people, and I say this because it happened to me, why are you asking that question again? You already asked. Well, There's so much that's going on. I just want to make sure. I'm not trying to annoy you. I'm not trying to piss you off. I'm just trying to help you. I get it. I understand. You are going through your nightmare. And I'm asking you all of these questions. But I think the thing is that people feel that the amount of questions that I'm asking ends up delaying the response time. Well, here's the thing. There is no delay. Even in a one-seater dispatch center in a police department, like when I first started out in Central Florida, all the questions that I was asking would not slow down the response. Because while I'm going through and typing everything in, I'm muting my microphone and getting over the radio and sending my officer to where you are. There's no delay. The delay sometimes only comes from when I'm asking you questions and you're not answering them. That is when there's a delay at times. Not all the time. And I'm not saying this to put it back on the caller or anything, but there are times that I remember where I would be asking these questions and people would say, just get them out here. Well, they are going out there already. However, I need the answers to these questions to keep my officers safe, or EMS or fire, and you safe as well. Because if I don't find out that there's a weapon or any of those other details, the officers are going as they're going, but maybe they need backup. And knowing that information, we get other people going out there. So there are all of these different reasons as to why I'm asking you all these questions. But number one, the amount of questions that I'm asking you does not slow down response time. Here's the other thing. On a medical, believe it or not, I have had to put people on hold during medicals. And I know you probably hear that and you think, why would you ever do that? I don't understand. Well, I'll help you understand. When you're the only person on phones and you have multiple calls coming in for this medical, I might put you on hold so that I can dispatch out EMS. Because here's the thing. You're already with these heightened senses. You're already hysterical. You're freaking out. Again, it's very, it's understandable is what I'm getting at. It is very understandable. You're going through hell right now. Why would you be put on hold when you're going through hell? If you hear me tone out, like you hear the doo-doo, something like that. Not all of the tones are the same. That's just the way ours sounded. But if you hear that, that's gonna make you panic even more. So I might put you on hold, or I might just mute my microphone and you don't even know what's going on. You have no idea because it's seamless. I'm doing it just like that, all in one motion. Now, a lot of times if you're working with a team and you just, look over, you can ask somebody, can you tone that out? And the person will help you out. As long as they're not on another call, right? So there are all of these different things that are going on. But for that time, for that medical, putting someone on hold or simply muting my microphone, it's not delaying any response time. So I will tell you this. When I first started doing everything that I do, especially with the blog, because Within the Trenches, this podcast started out as a blog where I was just sharing my stories. And it was therapeutic for me to do so. And I wanted people to understand more about 911 as well. And so I put this out there. I put some of my stories out there. I have the podcast. A friend of mine that I went to school with, he lives in Hawaii now. And back then, when I first started doing all of this, he ended up sending me a message. And he said, I just wanted to tell you this, but years ago, I was in a car crash, just a small fender bender, nothing too crazy. But I called 911 and they put me on hold. And I got so upset. But after listening to the podcast, after reading the blog, I understand more. That when they put me on hold, they didn't put me on hold because they didn't want to talk to me or help me or anything like that. It's because my emergency isn't the only emergency that is going on right now. And in the grand scheme of things, mine wasn't the highest priority, but now I know why. Now I know why they put me on hold. So I'm sorry to to that dispatcher that I was kind of crappy to, because I thought, why would they put me on hold? But now I understand. And I think that's just the thing, is these are the conversations that we need to continue to have so that people can understand, which is why I continue to do what I do. So when it comes to why do you ask so many questions, or why would you put me on hold? There you go. And if you ever have any questions, you can email me as well. wttpodcast@gmail.com. I will help you understand as much as I can. But again, that's why I do what I do as well. Because when I first started, it was one of the things that I realized was that, the general public just doesn't understand what it is that we do or why we do it. Especially if we have to put you on hold. But again, your emergency isn't the only emergency that's happening. The world doesn't stop. 911 doesn't stop. And that might sound harsh, but I'm not trying to be harsh. That's just the reality of it, that there are emergencies that are happening all the time. And we are trying to basically triage through the calls. And if you're the only person who's on phones, man, and I've been there before, but it makes it that much more tough to do. So that's something to think about. Number 3. So number 3 has to do with, you guys just sit there and answer the phone, right? No. So in the video, I was being funny about it. I was kind of being a smartass. In the video, I was saying, yeah, at one time we sat there, but now there's also treadmills, because some dispatch centers have their consoles that have a treadmill so that, you can get up and move around while you're taking calls or while you're on the radio. Because if you didn't know this, if you sit for a living where you work, that is not good for your body. You need to get up, move around. And a lot of dispatchers I know, they will track their steps, and they have their wireless, headsets on, and they'll just kind of walk around the dispatch center to get their steps in. And if a call comes in, they quickly go back to their seat. And so, but some of them have treadmills. And I also said the consoles as well move up and down. So we don't just sit there. So I was being a smartass, right? But and that is reality too. We do have those things, but we don't just sit there and answer calls. I mean, we're sitting there, but we're also making life and death decisions like that. And I think that's another thing that people just don't fully understand, is while, yes, we're sitting there are all of these calls that are coming in. And if you didn't notice from everything that I've said up until this point, it takes a special person to do what we do in 911, especially when the centers are short-staffed. And I think that's another thing that people don't know about, that don't understand, is that a ton of dispatch centers are short-staffed right now. And they have been for a long time, but the last few years, it has been even more of an issue. And it's getting better in some places, right? And it's not just 911. There are a lot of places that are short-staffed, but especially in 911, what you have going on is a lot of dispatchers who are working 16-hour shifts, 18-hour shifts, 60 to 70 hours total with overtime. And a lot of people are getting burnt out. And it sucks because I remember a time as well when my dispatch center was short-staffed. And we ended up getting back to staffing levels after a while, but it took a lot. It took us turning around the culture in our center so that people wanted to stay. Because when you get to a point when you can't take vacation time at all, people are going to burn out. And that's what it was like during my time of short staffing. No one could take vacation time. We have what's called a force-in list. Not every center does, but the center that I was at, we had a force-in list. What that means is if someone called in, I'll start it this way. You've got 3 people working a 12-hour shift. You're working a 5P to 5A shift. And somebody calls in for that morning shift. And you go down the force-in list for that overtime. If you're at the top and you answer the phone or close to the top and answer the phone, you are coming in for that shift. But if you didn't answer the phone, I mean, you were safe. You were good to go. But if you were one of those 3 that were working that shift, you now are going to be splitting that time between the 3 of you. So if I was working that midnight shift and I was close to the top, I would just volunteer for the time because then I would get to pick also the chunk of time that I would be filling. And for me, because I lived about 45 minutes away from the dispatch center, I would immediately choose that 5A to 9A shift so that I would just work it 16 hours straight and then go home to sleep and spend whatever time I could with the family and then come right back to work. It would suck if you got that 1P to 5P because now you're working from 1P to 5A. So what we would do a lot of times, and also if you volunteered for that time, you went to the bottom of that force-in list. So what my buddy and I were doing was we were volunteering for a lot of that time so that we could go to the bottom of the list. But here's the thing. We were so short-staffed that when we came in for that overtime shift, we were getting forced for 2 more shifts on top of that. And not the same day, but consecutive days. So it was horrible. Morale was down. When it came to the phone calls and working, doing everything we had to do, well-oiled machine, we were kicking ass and taking names because that's what we do. And that's how we do it. But after the call, nobody's really talking to each other. And we're just kind of there. And it took a lot of team building and us connecting with each other to really build everything back. It was on us. We were the ones who did it. We brought it back. And we got people in there. And it ended up being just amazing. So again, a lot of things that we had to go through during that time. But again, I think that's a lot of stuff that people don't understand, that they're short staffing and we're just trying to work through a lot of different things. But to say that we just sit there and answer the phone, Yeah, that's not it at all. I mean, we're like chameleons in a way, because we blend into our environment. But also what I mean by that is in those calls, because we morph into different hats that we wear. We go from 911 professional, dispatcher, call taker, to a psychiatrist, to a negotiator. I mean, there's so many different things that we turn into. And I'm just proud of everybody who's there, who does it. And that I get to do what I do, because I get to record episodes like this, where I can help you as the general public who watch and listen to this understand more what it is that 911 professionals do. And especially when I have guests on, so that you can hear their stories and what it was like for them. You can understand so much more. Open those eyes to what it is that they do, but more importantly, why they do it. And for those who are in public safety, to know that you're not alone, that there are people out there that advocate for you and that are just trying to help leave 911 in a better place than where they found it. So when you call 911, you are calling the heroes of 911, because everything starts with that 911 professional that answers the phone. They're there with you from the beginning to the end. And even though they're not out there to see what it is that's going on, they're putting together these pieces of this puzzle of what it is that's going on. And sometimes it's worse what we're picturing and putting together in this puzzle than what is actually going on out there. And it's always good to hear from an officer later on that, hey, it wasn't as bad as it sounded. This is what was going on. And we think, oh, thank the Lord, man. Thank you. When we're able to get that gift of closure, that is something that's very satisfying, but also in a way hard to explain, because if you've never done it and you end up wondering, what happened to that person? You would think we would find out all the time, right? But no, it doesn't happen. The majority of the time, we don't get any closure, which really sucks. But when we do get that closure, when we get that gift of closure, it's awesome. So those are the three things. Those are three things that I explained to friends, family, even callers when I would be on the phone with them, because they would say, where's the officer at? And I would have to say sometimes, the officer's not just sitting around the corner. There are only so many officers that are working for the entire county, and they're coming from a couple townships away. Now, right off the bat, that might sound harsh to you. However, those callers would thank me for being real with them and giving them information so that they would know, hey, the person's on their way, but they're coming from, kind of far. Now, I would never give them like a time limit or anything like that, because that's just liability. You don't do that. But to say that they're getting to you as fast as they can, a lot of people appreciated that. I know I would. And that's why I would say that to people sometimes, just to let them know what is going on, because, you're setting that expectation. And it was always good too at the end when the officer gets there, like, okay, the officer's pulling up. Do you feel safe enough for me to let you go? Or do you want me to stay in the line with you until they're like right at the door? Sometimes they would say, yes, please stay on the phone until they're right at the door so that I know for sure that they're here. Or they would say, no, I see them running up right now. I'll go ahead and let you go. I'm like, okay. And then we would let go. And then they would say, thank you. And those are the moments that I cherish the most, is when people would say thank you at the end, because in the beginning, it would be a completely different story. I might be getting yelled at. I might be getting sworn at. And again, I don't blame you for that, because you're going through hell at that moment. You're living your own nightmare, your worst nightmare. So I don't blame you, because you're not hating on me. It's just the situation that you're in. Man, I do miss it though. I do miss dispatch. And, a lot of what would go on, a lot of those calls, just helping people that way. But now I'm on the other side, and I'm helping in a different way. And that is by helping the public understand what 911 is all about, how 911 dispatchers actually work, and also at the same time, helping dispatchers, being an advocate for them and their mental health and wellness, in the sense of the power of storytelling, to be able to share their stories and get them out there. Been doing it for over a decade. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. And it has been an amazing experience. So if you're part of the general public, thank a 911 professional today. If you ever have to call, this is some of the stuff that they go through. We can go into other conversations if you'd like, and you can always shoot an email to me. Again, it's wttpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll cover some of the stuff that you want. And if you're watching and listening to this and you are a 911 professional, thank you for what you do. I've been there with you within the trenches of 911. I know it's a lot different now with the technology, but the foundation of what we do, that will always remain the same. And that is how I will always be able to connect with you, is that foundation of being a 911 professional. Technology aside, in that sense of how it is now, it's really the same in a lot of ways when we talk about, again, that foundation. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate you. And not a lot of people can do what you do. One voice can make a difference, and that voice is you, your voice. You can make the difference and change the world of your callers while you're on the line with them, those on the other side of the radio, and those around you. So thank you for what you do as the most vital piece of public safety. This has been an excellent episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any comments, questions, or if you are a 911 professional who's new to the profession, seasoned or retired, and you want to be on the podcast to share your story, I would love to have you on. Just simply go to links.co/Iam911. And this is for anyone to check out extra information on the podcast and what I do, whether it be classes, conferences that I go to, or the Imagine Listening podcast, any of that stuff. Go to links, and that's links with 2 I's, .co/Iam911. You'll find everything there. My email, social media, where to follow, where to hear the latest episodes of this podcast, the OG podcast, Within the Trenches, and also the new one, Imagine Listening. And you can find the link on there where to schedule an episode with me. It is hooked to my calendar, so we can set it up there. If you absolutely need 30 minutes, choose the 30 minutes. Otherwise, choose the 60 minutes, because we're going to need that much time to go through the episode. So make sure to check that one again, unless you absolutely need the 30 minutes. And from there, there's also the free link to the Trenches community, where there's tons of ongoing conversations, as well as live broadcasts that I do, virtual events like the Public Safety Showcase, and also over 200 hours of free continuing education for 911 professionals. All of it is there. And also where you can find the Imagine Listening books, Volume 1, Volume 2. I'm working on the voiceover for the audiobook for Volume 2. And then if you're looking for any podcasts or dispatch merchandise, you can find it there as well. Once Once again, that is links with 2eyes.co/IM911. And shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety. And also shout out to subscribers of the podcast. And you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But imagine listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.